President Claudia Sheinbaum announcing two very important arrests today in the war against drugs, including a suspect referred to as the, quote, right-hand man to El Chapo's sons.
January 2026. While most Americans start their day with coffee, two criminal empires are waging an invisible war that reaches into every corner of the United States. This is the story of how Mexican cartels became narco-terrorists and how a crisis decades in the making exploded into international conflict. Meet the Titans, the Sinaloa Cartel and Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. Together, they control an empire worth billions. But this isn't just about drugs anymore. 70,000 Americans dead from fentanyl in a single year, more than the entire Vietnam War. Over 30,000 Mexicans killed in cartel violence in 2025 alone. These aren't just numbers, they're sons and daughters, mothers and fathers. August 2024, El Paso, Texas, a betrayal that would shake the cartel world to its core. Ismael Zambada, El Mayo, one of Mexico's most powerful drug lords, arrested after decades of evading capture. But this wasn't a law enforcement victory. This was an inside job. The legend says El Mayo was lured to a meeting by his own allies, then handed over to American authorities. Within hours, Sinaloa state erupted. Bodies in the streets, citizens disappeared. The violence wasn't random, it was a message. By March 2025, the dominoes were falling. Ruben Oseguera Gonzalez, El Menchito, son of CJNG's supreme leader, sentenced to life plus 30 years. His crimes? Trafficking 50 metric tons of cocaine, producing over 1,000 metric tons of methamphetamine, ordering the murders of more than 100 people, $6 billion in drug proceeds forfeited. But El Menchito had built an empire before his capture. For nearly 7 years, he was CJNG's second-in-command, operating in the shadows, while his father, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho, remained free with a $15 million bounty on his head. Here's what makes this different from every drug war before it. Fentanyl, a synthetic killer 50 times more potent than heroin. 2 milligrams, the size of a few grains of sand, can end a life. Unlike cocaine or heroin, fentanyl doesn't need acres of farmland or months of cultivation. It takes days, not seasons. A small lab with chemicals from China, and you've got a product more profitable than anything in cartel history. CJNG controls Mexico's key ports: Veracruz, Manzanillo, Lázaro Cárdenas. From Asia, shipping containers arrive with precursor chemicals, the building blocks of death. The Mexican cartels learned from their Chinese suppliers, then surpassed them. This is where the story gets complex, because cartels aren't just drug dealers anymore. They're multinational corporations with diversified portfolios. Meet the Cartel de Santa Rosa de la Lima. While CJNG and Sinaloa fought over drug routes, this group found gold in Mexico's oil fields. They call it huachico, fuel theft. Billions of dollars stolen annually from Pemex, Mexico's state oil company. The operation is sophisticated. Bribe corrupt employees, tap into pipelines, hijack tanker trucks, steal crude oil and smuggle it across the border labeled as waste material. Even after their leader, Jose Antonio Yepes Ortiz, El Mauro, was arrested in 2020, he continues running operations from inside prison, using lawyers and family as messengers. But Santa Rosa de la Lima made a fatal mistake. In 2017, they declared war on CJNG over control of the Bermuda Triangle, a collection of municipalities in Guanajuato where Pemex's infrastructure runs deep. The violence that followed transformed Guanajuato into one of Mexico's deadliest states. August 2025, the U.S. Treasury Department sanctions two more cartels, Carteles Unidos and Los Viagras. Their crime? Extorting avocado farmers. Michoacan's agricultural sector generates billions. Cartels demand protection payments from farmers, packers, and exporters. Refuse to pay? Your crops burn, your equipment destroyed, or worse.
If the government doesn't intervene or establish an effective plan to support us, this will cause social unrest. We're experiencing it today. People are angry, distressed, and above all terrified by what is happening in Michoacan.
In areas where multiple cartels operate, farmers face extortion from all sides. August 2025. Intelligence reports confirm CJNG has created a specialized paramilitary drone unit, at least 10 members trained in Ukraine war tactics. FPV drones modified to drop explosives. The cartels are now using military-grade technology learned from modern warfare. This isn't amateur hour. CJNG has recruited ex-Colombian military and paramilitary personnel. Los Zetas, originally formed from Mexican Special Forces deserters, were once called the most technologically advanced and violent criminal group in the country. Now, everyone's catching up. But the most sophisticated part of the operation, the money. Enter the Chinese money laundering networks, CMLNs. The Zhang cartel, operating through shell companies, chemical labs, veterinary clinics, computer stores, retail shops, all fronts for moving billions. Here's the genius. Cartels need to launder drug proceeds and pay Chinese brokers for fentanyl precursors. The solution? Trade-based exchange. Timber, wildlife, marine products. Mexico's incredible biodiversity becomes currency in the synthetic drug economy.
The environmental cost is staggering. Illegal logging, wildlife trafficking, deforestation for cartel-grown agricultural products. The cartels are destroying Mexico's natural heritage to pay for the chemicals that are destroying American lives. February 2025, a decision that changed everything. President Trump's administration designates 6 Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations: Sinaloa, CJNG, Cartel del Noreste, La Nueva Familia Michoacana, Cartel del Golfo, Carteles Unidos. This wasn't symbolic. FTO designation gives U.S. law enforcement and military unprecedented legal authority. It freezes assets, allows military intervention, treats cartel members like Al-Qaeda operatives. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum condemned the move as threatening Mexico's sovereignty. Her message was clear.
The DEA puts out the statement. We don't know what it's based on. We haven't reached any agreement with the DEA.
In Mexico, the people rule. We are a free and sovereign country. Cooperation, yes. Subordination and intervention, no. January 2026, President Trump's latest interview sends shockwaves. We are going to start now hitting land with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico. U.S. forces have already struck maritime targets. 97% reduction in drugs coming by water. Now Trump suggests ground operations in Mexico. Sheinbaum responds by proposing constitutional reforms to strengthen protections against unauthorized foreign operations. But the real war is financial. Secretary Bessent's directive cut the cartels off from the U.S. financial system completely. Every money laundering network, every shell company, every corrupt bank. June 2025, FinCEN identifies 2 mid-sized Mexican banks and a brokerage firm as money laundering concerns under the Fentanyl Sanctions Act. The orders prohibit fund transmissions, cutting off the lifeblood of cartel operations. December 18, 2025, Cristian Fernando Gutierrez Ochoa, El Guacho, sentenced to 140 months. CJNG Lieutenant, El Mencho's son-in-law. The man who allegedly kidnapped 2 Mexican Navy members in 2021 to force authorities to release El Mencho's wife. He lived the cartel dream in America. Luxury homes, exotic cars, designer watches, stockpiles of cash, and ghost guns. He thought he could hide in plain sight. He was wrong. February 2025, 29 cartel members transferred from Mexican to U.S. custody in a single operation. Coordinated justice on an unprecedented scale. February 27, 2025, Javier Algredo Vázquez, sentenced to nearly 19 years. His crime? Supplying CJNG with enough precursor chemicals to produce over 2 billion doses of fentanyl and 700 million doses of methamphetamine.
Think about that. 2 billion doses. Enough to kill every person in North America several times over, from a single chemical broker in Queens, New York. November 15, 2025. Thousands of demonstrators flood Mexico City streets. Over 100 injured, mostly police officers. They're protesting cartel violence and government corruption. The media calls it Gen Z resistance. The government blames right-wing agitators. The truth is more complex. 2 weeks earlier, Carlos Manzo Rodriguez, mayor of Urupan in Michoacán, was assassinated. He had publicly opposed the cartels and requested protection from President Sheinbaum. His plea went unanswered. Between July 2023 and June 2024 alone, 43 politicians and candidates were murdered. Mexico has one of the highest murder rates on earth, but political assassinations have become routine. The government cannot or will not enforce accountability. Every day, 60,000 cars pass through 34 lanes at San Ysidro, the busiest land port in the Western Hemisphere. Customs and Border Protection has scanners, drug-sniffing dogs, dedicated officers. They search 8% of vehicles. 8%. That's the vulnerability the cartels exploit. They hide fentanyl in gas tanks, plastic bags inside car panels, secret compartments engineered by professionals. And who's doing the smuggling? 2/3 are American citizens paid by the cartels, high school students, middle schoolers. The DEA administrator calls it simple. This is not a whodunit. We know who's responsible. The Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels, with Chinese precursor suppliers, with money launderers spanning 3 continents, with distribution networks in 47 countries. CJNG operates in at least 27 of Mexico's 32 states. Sinaloa has strongholds across half the country and operations in at least 47 nations globally. August 2025. Guatemala grants temporary humanitarian status to 161 Mexicans fleeing cartel violence in Chiapas. Think about that. Mexicans seeking refugee status from their own country's violence. Between 2000 and 2012, Mexico was the most dangerous country for journalists. Dozens murdered for covering the drug war. Media offices bombed, reporters threatened in the United States for their coverage. Some networks stopped reporting entirely. Others were infiltrated by the cartels themselves. This is the true cost. Not just the 70,000 American overdose deaths annually, not just the 30,000 murdered in Mexico.
It's the farmers who can't farm, the journalists who can't report, the politicians who can't govern, the families torn apart, the communities living in fear.
The question isn't whether the cartels can be defeated. It's whether the United States and Mexico can cooperate long enough to try. President Sheinbaum speaks of deeper coordination. Secretary Rubio mentions good security cooperation. But Trump's threats of military strikes and tariffs loom over every conversation. Meanwhile, the pills keep coming. Rainbow-colored tablets designed to look like candy. Counterfeit prescription painkillers indistinguishable from the real thing, each one a potential death sentence. January 2026, the war continues. The cartels evolve. The death toll rises. And somewhere in Mexico, El Mencho remains free with a $15 million bounty on his head, running an empire that kills more Americans annually than any terrorist organization in history. This is the Cartel Chronicles. This is Mexico's shadow war. And this is just the beginning. These cartel wars are happening now before us, and more stories are unfolding. Subscribe and click on the notification button for what is coming next.